Hey everybody, Akuago 220 here. NightBlader over there has had the unfortunate luck of tackling Gupto by himself, so I decided to help him out a bit. Also, you might be thinking, why are we going to commentate on something nearly 2 years old? Well, he made a follow-up to this old rant, and we thought it would be best that if we looked back to fully understand how someone like Guptil can have this many issues with current technology. Plus, as someone with years of experience in the IT tech work area, I'm just wondering how faulty he can truly be, and how many trivial points I could pull out of him.
Hey, any rant from him can and will be faulty.
So enough delaying the inevitable, let's get this started with a grain of salt. Fuck it, NightBlader, get the entire can of salt!
Alright, but this thing is damned heavy.
Computers, game consoles, even cell phones with internet access. What more could you ask for? Technology has become very fascinating today. Chatting with friends online is easy as pie.
The hell kind of messenger is this?
I don't know, it seems a bit outdated. Kinda like AOL.
Cellular phones have many built-in devices like a camera, and the list goes on. Now think to yourself, if the electronic devices today are wonderful to have, what if they couldn't do stuff like properly play old-school video games?
Because when it comes to all forms of technology, in order to advance, you must put the past behind you, unless you have some digital means of playing old-school games like the Wii's Virtual Console.
Or in some cases, emulation.
You can't just make a console that can physically cling on to the past. There'd be no room for advancement, thus beginning a cultural lag. Also, dude, you can just keep the console that played such old games, and maintenance is not all that hard.
Q-tips and cleaning alcohol. You're welcome.
Well, those days have come to life. This entire thing can be summed up into 2 words: compatibility issues. Not all machines and devices are like that though. The 2 biggest suspects on new technology today are computers and televisions. Of course, the new upgrades are nice, but the fact of the matter is that if you wanted to, let's say, play a game released in the 90s, it won't work properly.
That's not the case for all 90s computer games. I've got a 1999 version of Monopoly and I could still play it on my Windows 7 laptop. I can get through an entire game and win.
For instance, in order for a copy of Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure for the PC to fully work, you will need a machine that runs Windows 95.
But who would go out of their way to buy an obsolete computer to play an obsolete, obscure game unless they were getting paid to do retro game reviews like the Angry Video Game Nerd? Plus, you could just find a ROM. Odds are that wherever you found the ROM, you can also find the emulator that could be used on any computer to play it. I don't really encourage people to use ROMs for gaming only or pirating, but when it comes to rare, old, and/or obscure games, you don't really have that many options.
Especially for games that are very rare, weren't released in certain parts of the world, or at all for that matter, or not on the Virtual Console, Xbox Arcade, or PlayStation Network.
The same deal also goes for Macintoshes. Wolfenstein 3D can't play on a Power Mac G5 because it doesn't have a floppy disk drive.
Don't tell me you want floppy disk drives to come back in full effect!
Oh god, I hope not.
Do you know how many floppies it took to load an operating system onto a computer? Given simplicity, it was roughly 10 to 20 you had to put in one at a time, which was a tedious task. But can you imagine putting floppy disks for operating systems today? Take a good look at this table from CoolNerds.com and ask yourself why we don't want floppies to come back.
Instead, I have to resort to trying it out on my G3 machine. Heck, I even have to step backward further and use a 68040 base Macintosh to properly play a copy of Journeyman Project 2, Buried in Time. Even if you had a CD-ROM version of Wolfenstein 3D, it still wouldn't play properly, let alone not at all, because the highest operating systems do not allow it to happen.
Macs have always had compatibility issues with games, and they still do to this day. Look at today's example, Steam. There are still plenty of good games that are just not compatible with Macs yet. Hell, it wasn't until June 10, 2010, nearly 3 years after release, that Team Fortress 2 became compatible with Mac computers.
I'm also aware that Windows computers have the DOSBox application to allow programs meant for older operating systems to function the right way. But just like before, they don't function the right way fully.
You honestly expected a DOSBox app to aid all older games to play perfectly?
Most emulators have problems, and not just for DOS either. Emulators for systems like Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or hell, even Super Nintendo have some kind of issue, whether it be graphics, sound, or just something else entirely.
Nothing is perfect in technology. It's man-made, Guptil, not God-sent.
To make more sense out of this, I was watching a video by Eric the Destroyer titled, "Let's Play Pitfall the Mayan Adventure." Borrowing a quote, he said, "There's no sound effects because this game was made for Windows 95, and basically, if I tried to put on sound effects, the game would lock up and then I couldn't play it."
That's advancement for you. You can roll with it, or culturally lag behind it, like most grandparents.
Game consoles are also guilty of the same thing. I was playing Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation one day on my Model 1 PS2, which I don't have anymore, and I got to the part where the player is prompted to swap Disc 1 for Disc 2. After doing so, nothing happened. I tried pressing the buttons and tweaking the analog sticks, and still nothing happened. The game was frozen. Just like older operating systems on computers, the original Metal Gear Solid can only be completed on a PlayStation 1.
Knight's a Metal Gear Solid expert, so I'll let him take the floor on this.
Yes, you can beat Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation 1. But you can also beat it on a slim PS2 or the PlayStation Network version for PS3. Also, that slim PS2 you showed earlier. By any chance, is that yours, Guptil?
Video games aren't the only problem with new stuff today. There are a few more things, frequently done, that also have big flaws. This is where the prime example comes in, the high-definition televisions. The only things these LCD screens are useful for are sharp high-resolution channels and gaming systems like the Xbox 360. Take a look at what a regular channel looks like on a cathode ray tube TV. As you can see, it looks great.
That's the best still you can get!
It's a standard channel with standard quality on a standard TV. Of course it would be most fitting!
On an LCD TV, however, the resolution is much lower.
It's stretching to fit your high-definition television. You expect it to have the same quality or even better? Not unless you have the right TV service and or cables for it.
Also, the resolution isn't smaller. It's technically bigger due to it being stretched.
That's a big problem for my family because my stepdad wears glasses and he watches the NECN news, which doesn't have a high-definition channel.
I don't wear glasses, and the channels seem just fine to me. Knight, don't you wear glasses?
Yes, I do. This statement doesn't make any sense for a couple of reasons. First of all, glasses are supposed to make your vision better so you can see normally. Also, I've watched non-HD channels on an HD TV. I can see it just fine, and I'm nearsighted!
There's also other regular channels that we sometimes watch, and they don't have HD versions. Low resolution is also a problem for game systems other than the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Nintendo Wii. Even a DVD player and other old devices to plug into the TV result in having low texture quality. Simply put, if you wanted to have an easier time viewing objects and backgrounds, you will need a ray tube television.
No, you don't need a CRT television to play an 8, 16, 32, or 64-bit video game. Of course it's going to be better since that was built for at its time, but it's not entirely necessary. I play Star Fox 64 on my flat-screen TV, and I can easily see the foreground, background, and everything else without a problem.
Hell, I've played both Perfect Dark and GoldenEye on a flat screen, and I didn't have any issues.
Yeah, it gets stretched, but it's manageable.
Although there are TVs to give you that option so it doesn't look stretched.
You, however, seem to have severe issues which can easily be remedied by simply adapting.
LCD screens are also problematic due to the fact that the lighting changes at a different angle. Check out these RayTube monitor pictures for a little bit. As you can tell, the lighting does not look different at any given angle. Now check out these shots of an LCD monitor. Just like I said before, there are changes in the lighting all the time on these types of monitors. I'm mentioning this because if multiple people are looking at it from a different angle, they won't be able to see what the image really looks like unless they got right in front of it. But what if they couldn't?
First of all, you're making seeing an LCD screen at different angles seem like a major issue. University crowd around flat screens and laptops all the time, and they don't have a problem seeing it at all because unlike your scenarios, they have plenty of room. The same can also go for NFL Sunday games where loads of people crowd around a TV to watch a game. Again, plenty of room for them all. So the only way your scenarios can come even close to being reality is if you have little to no space, or if you were too lazy to change the brightness level in the display settings. Second, what's with the note? I know that memos are important, but please, your text-to-speech program is so boring, I read that note for a while. I just got that distracted. Plus, it was more intriguing than your robotic rambling. Just take the note off the computer, take your snapshots, and put it back on. Crisis averted!
Now here's the too long didn't listen version. No matter what angle it is, as long as you can see it, it's at least good enough!
That's not all though.
By the way, there's an annotation saying that he kind of changed his mind on LCD monitors because the electric bill doesn't get as high, but he still loathes HD TVs.
HD televisions have the stupidest button layout on the TV itself. Instead of having the controls perfectly placed on the front, they are either 1. On the left or right side, 2. On the underside, or 3. Underneath the panel.
I would agree with number 2 being a pain,
For like 5 seconds when you accidentally hit the wrong button.
but for the others, you make it seem like a massive deal to push a button on the left or right sides, or from behind a panel. You can easily see them, and you would not have to greatly maneuver your TV to push them. Also, panel lids can be locked to stay open if they're that much of a problem. By the way, you forgot that buttons could also be placed on the top of televisions, genius, like mine.
I don't know what convinced the companies that made those televisions to do such a thing. If the batteries in your remote die and you don't have any replacements, you need to either turn the TV clockwise or counterclockwise, then push the buttons, reach underneath the TV and push the buttons, or search for a small niche that blends in with the black border, open it, and finally operate the controls. What a pain.
You really have that much of a problem with button layouts? You must be lazy or weak to have this much of an issue. You make it seem like moving these flat-screen TVs are jobs for Olympians. I can tell you from experience that moving HD TVs around are nowhere near as heavy as moving a CRT TV around, especially those 20 to 30 inch tall CRT TVs that could crush your fingers if you aren't careful.
God forbid you ever actually loses a remote for a while.
There isn't even a headphone input on some of these.
Why would you even need headphones for an HD TV? I can understand those small TVs used during hurricanes because your house is out of power, but what would you need headphones for an HD TV for? Plus, it would look ridiculous wearing one plugged into a flat screen, with the headphones wire stretching in the air, unless you were really that close to the TV, in which case you could probably just turn down the volume.
Also, quick question. Other than the small TVs you mentioned, who the hell used headphone jacks for a TV in the first place?
Not to mention that if you were playing an NES Zapper game like Duck Hunt, light detection becomes almost non-existent.
Actually, since the zappers are aging, there's gonna be some issues. Mainly the light detection on it. So it's not because of the TV, It's because of the zapper itself!
Even a Super Nintendo Super Scope does not work. Borrowing a piece from James Rolfe's NES Accessories script, he said, "Even if I point the gun in the same spot, the bullets just scatter all over the place, all because I'm using a flat-screen TV." If you thought that resolution, button placement, and compatibility weren't enough, think again. On Operating System 10 for the Macintosh, the text-to-speech voices, like the one you're listening to right now, have sloppier speech than the ones you hear on Operating System 8.6 or below.
Oh, fuck this. Aku, you take this.
Very well, Knight.
You are listening to Junior on macOS 10. My favorite food is pizza.
Did you notice any differences in terms of being fluent?
Anyone can notice them with a proper comparison, which we'll hear soon enough.
If not, I'll compare the 8.6 version with the 10 version side by side using the sentences played before.
You are listening to Junior on macOS 8.6. You are listening to Junior on macOS 10. My favorite food is pizza. My favorite food is pizza.
Junior sounds a lot more fluent, much faster, and a little bit more human-like on Mac OS X. Plus, Junior sounds more interesting to hear on OS X than OS 8.6, which easily bores me.
If you think that both Juniors sound exactly the same, you are sadly mistaken.
Who honestly thought that? Are you challenging your viewers' intellect?
Hey, anyone who's intrigued by this rant should be questioned.
Mac OS 8.6 Junior is more fluent than the other.
They clearly have their audible differences. And really, you think the older version is superior? That's like saying Microsoft Sam is better than most text-to-speech software today.
I have a message to the electronic companies.
Oh boy.
Because we all know they want to listen to some guy who couldn't even use his own voice at the time talk about the most trivial issues.
It's boring the hell out of me.
As cool as flat-screen monitors and televisions are, I'm afraid to say that they are inferior to cathode ray tube televisions and monitors. I would really appreciate it if you would go back to selling the superior kind.
Control lag at its finest, people!
Plus, the chances of someone from a huge company seeing this video and making it to the end is about 0%.
I also hope that the next operating systems, like Windows 7, are fully compatible with the previous stuff.
That's right, let us not advance in technology, even though there are still programs that are the same as those in previous operating systems but have been updated, and go back to the way things were, back when programs ran slow, barely had any detail, and were just as advanced as an Amiga computer. Just change the display settings to look like older operating systems and pretend it's the past.
It'll be like the 80s all over again, except you should be ashamed of yourself.
The same also goes for game consoles yet to come. And here's a message to Apple. Please fix the text-to-speech voices to make them sound the way they were back in 1999.
More like disapproving of your trivial complaints on technology.
And spending their time with something actually constructive.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Please help pave the way to a better future. Bon voyage.
And they will, but definitely not by following your suggestions. Well, as much as I would love to give my final thoughts,
And get the hell away from this video.
we unfortunately got another part to take care of. One that he uploaded years later following up to this oldie.
No, wait! There's another part? No!